News Talk 1240.
Your body, your power. Yeah. So if you are wanting to power your smartphone, you probably got to plug into a wall, right? We're all tired of it, right? I mean, I woke up this morning and my battery had 60% battery life left. What's up with that? You know, I wake up this morning, I don't expect to see 60%. I want to see 100%. I want 60. What are you talking about? 60, what's that? That's 10% more than half gone. I don't want to deal with that. So nobody wants to deal with a half-dead battery. Nobody wants to deal with all that nonsense. So what do you do to fix it? Well, you could use your battery or your body as a battery. Yeah, no kidding. So your body, the battery, powering gadgets from human biofuel, according to Ars Technica. Technology has always been intimately linked to the human body. From sharpened flint to smartphones, we've been carrying our inventions for millennia. But the relationship is about to get even closer. The next generation of electronic devices might not just be near our bodies, they actually could be on them and powered by them. So we've heard about smartwatches, maybe you have as well, that are powered by wearing them, right? I mean, we've heard about Stirling engines before. They're powered by the heat of your body and all that sort of thing. We're familiar with these concepts. It's not really anything new. But we haven't really been able to implement that in a meaningful way when it comes down to, say, our gadgets, our devices, what we use every day. And, you know, people are going to say, oh, it's just one more way for them to connect us to the digital world, and it's just going to be terrible, and it's going to be the worst thing ever because all these people are going to be so digitally connected that they're going to be disconnected from the real world, and they won't know what to do, and yada, yada, and people won't be able to file tax returns anymore because they won't know how to walk down the street, and, oh, technology is just going to kill us all, man. Well, I beg to differ, actually. I think technology is bringing us closer, believe it or not. Now, how and why do I think that? How could I possibly think that technology is bringing us closer together rather than farther away? Well, it's actually kind of simple. I can talk to any number of my friends overseas with no problem over the internet. I couldn't do that before. No, because of the internet, I've met people who I would have never met before. I've made really good friends out of people I would have never ever talked to without the internet. So the internet's actually bringing us much closer than it is pulling us apart. It's a lot better than people would have you believe. You know, people are for some reason afraid of technology, saying that all these gadgets are just going to be the ruination of us. I really don't believe that, and there's not really much evidence pointing towards that. And a good example of that is an anniversary which we've just had, where it exemplifies how something can be either a tool or, I mean, something is a tool, and that's it. I should say something is a tool. It's either a weapon or it's an instrument for building something. Think about atomic power. Now, I know lots of people get mad about atomic power. Lots of people say atomic power causes more problems than it's worth. Atomic power can cause lots of people to die. Look at 3 Mile Island. Look at what happened over in, I think, Wyoming. I think it was Wyoming, is out on the West Coast, or in the Western region, I should say, west of here, where a guy pulled up uranium fuel rods too high and caused an explosion and a flash of steam and killed 3 people and yada, yada. And look at what happened in Chernobyl and all these things. And they'll say the nuclear power is more trouble than it's worth. Well, perhaps, but how many people have died in coal mines? You know, how many people have died? And my grandfather died due to black lung that he contracted from a coal mine. So coal power is not very clean either. What about, coal ash spills that we have? Solar power seems to be pretty clean, but it's not very efficient yet. Think about wind power. That's pretty clean, but it's also not very efficient yet. We run into a lot of problems when we're looking at alternative energies. As it is now, it seems like nuclear power is actually, believe it or not, one of the best options. It seems weird to say, but yeah, nuclear power is actually one of the better options. And we can now celebrate the birthday of one atomic milestone, actually, which is the 70th anniversary of the first nuclear bomb. Now, that sounds really harsh, right? 70 years since the first successful atomic bomb blast. Ooh, ouch. I mean, that's kind of a touchy subject, right? People are going to say, well, the atomic bomb killed a lot of people. And people are going to say, well, the atomic bomb saved a lot of people too. I'm not going to take a position on that because, frankly, that's not a discussion that I want to get into. I'll put it this way. I'm very pacifist. So obviously I'm not in favor of killing people. We'll put it that way. Well, Thursday marked 70 years since the world's first successful atomic bomb test as part of the top secret World War II program, the Manhattan Project, which was perpetrated here, actually, well, in Tennessee anyway, in Oak Ridge. So due to the controversy surrounding this detonation, the resulting destruction through bombing of Japan, and the implications for society, how should we actually be remembering this event? Well, Extreme Tech is positing some scenarios in which we could remember the first, or rather, the 70th anniversary of the atomic bomb blast. But here's something that that should be remembered: is that objects are just that, objects. They are tools. That's something that people oftentimes forget, especially in a heat of the moment or after a tragedy, just like the one that we've just had, where there was a shooter who murdered 5 people. So we are in a fervor after that point, right? After this tragedy has happened, we're sort of in a state of mourning, which is of course fine, and that's definitely understandable and right. But we're in a state also of trying to solve problems. One of those problems is, people will say, perhaps weaponry. Now, I haven't actually seen much of that, and I'm kind of happy about that. That doesn't also doesn't really surprise me considering where we are, but so I haven't seen a whole lot of people saying that we should be banning guns, or we should be stopping people from buying ammunition or any of that sort of thing. We haven't really been seeing a whole lot of that, and it's Chattanooga, so I'm not really surprised. But that is another example of things which are only tools, which people like to point out as being the as some sort of instrument of destruction that can only do wrong, and that really doesn't seem to be the case. It's something that I've read that I thought was kind of interesting, is that people who are for gun control are actually not wanting to ban guns in general. They just want a different group of people to have those guns, because they want policemen to have guns in order to enforce laws, and they want soldiers to have guns in order to wage war. So obviously they're not anti-gun, they're just anti-citizenry owning guns. It sort of creates a serfdom among the lower class, which would be the voting peoples. And it would create a serfdom out of these people. So it creates a class separation, which I thought was what they were trying to stop anyway. Leads to an odd problem. Well, anyway, that's just another example of one thing being a tool, and that's something that that we have from that's something we have from the nuclear bomb as well, is where it's only a tool. Now, the nuclear bomb is a terrible weapon. It's something which should not be used ever. It's something that's awful and should not be used. Now, people are going to say, oh, we need to nuke Iran. Ooh, we need to nuke China because, I don't know. Ooh, we need to nuke North Korea. We need to drop nukes on countries we don't agree with. We need to kill tons of civilians, I suppose, is the same thing that they're saying. But that's not the right approach to anything. Death and destruction is definitely not the right approach to actually much of anything, because then that doesn't really make us any better than anyone else. So the nuclear power problem is not actually a problem. It's more an issue of usage. Nuclear power can be used in great, wonderful, positive ways, and nuclear power can also be used to kill lots of civilians. So we have 2 sides to the same coin, and this is the 70th, or close to the 70th anniversary of the first nuclear bomb blast. In the blink of an eye, the nuclear explosion unleashed the energy of approximately 20,000 tons of TNT, which we would call low yield now, by the way. And just like that, the human race, with the knowledge that this level of energy could be harnessed, would never be the same again. Robert Oppenheimer, chief physicist of the project and who was among the observers, realizing the terrible implications, famously quoted the Hindu Bible, recounting, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. No man-made technology have ever created such an unthinkable amount of power." The sand underneath the bomb melted to form a greenish radioactive form of glass known as trinitite. The sky became bright white, and the light was seen over the entire state of New Mexico. The crater left was nearly half a mile wide. The spectacular mushroom cloud rose to over 38,000 feet within minutes, and the heat of the explosion was 10,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun. 10 miles away, this heat was described as like standing directly in front of a roaring fireplace. Every single living thing within a mile of the tower was obliterated. The power of the explosion was estimated to be equivalent to the bomb load of 2,000 B-29 bombers. The Project Trinity test, which was part of the Manhattan Project, marked the beginning of the atomic age, and in the subsequent decades, around 2,000 nuclear tests were carried out with increasing energy, thus more deadly atomic weapons. Atomic weapons, and arguably the most extreme technology project of all time, had been born. So that means now that we have harnessed more destructive power than has ever been used before. And it's recent. 70 years ago is when this technology was discovered. That's astounding to think about. 70 years ago is when we discovered how to use and harness this incredible amount of energy, an incredibly expensive amount of energy for, at the time, death. But now we realize we can use it for good. We can use it for energy. We can use it for the greater good of mankind, perhaps. It can be used to bolster the marketplace. It's really It's kind of a amazing thing when you think about it. It's kind of amazing how we can turn this item of destruction, death, despair, murder, even into something that's really positive. We can turn it into something that has none of those implications, barring an accident happening. It turns something like that into something that's actually kind of positive and kind of good. I think that we should be thinking about good and positive things now, especially considering what's happened recently. It seems that focusing on the negativity side, or rather the negative side of life, is really, it seems like kind of a waste of brain power almost, because what are we doing thinking about all these negative things here, thinking, man, what a terrible thing. Man, I'm going to sit here and be depressed for the rest of the year, and I'm going to be afraid of everything. And that's not the approach to have. Would that be the approach that perhaps the victims would want us to have? Probably not. If it seems like the better option is just to live your life, be happy, man. Just chill out. And it seems like being afraid of everything and hiding in corners and being afraid of walking to the mall because you're afraid you'll get shot, that doesn't seem like really the right way to live. That seems like kind of a sad existence, really. It seems more like our best interest would be to actually just enjoy life and live it as best we can, and in as much of a godly manner as we can. That seems like the best way to handle things. And unfortunately, we're not going to be getting any sort of that any encouragement of that sort from the media that we have. Of course, we are the media here at Hot News Talk Radio, but any of the other media, I suppose, we're not really going to be getting that encouragement from other media sources. That's something that I notice. Other media sources, whenever they do the whole pundit thing, whenever they bring somebody in to discuss something, whenever they bring in some opinion show or whatever, which just seems like it's every single show that they have is a non-news show. It's something that's more like, well, we have this news story. Here's two people to talk about it. That's not the news. That's just an opinion show. That's not really reporting. That's just bringing two people in to talk about it. That might seem a little bit hypocritical, but we actually do have a news show, believe it or not. Hot News Live at 5 is on here at 5 o'clock p.m. Every weekday, barring Mondays, here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. It's Hot News Live at 5. It's right before Tex's show, which is Cowboy Up with Tex, which is on from 6 to 7 right here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. He talks about the day's events from his own very Texan perspective. He's a Chattanoogan by naturalization, but he's very much a Texan at heart. And we really appreciate that from him because he brings an interesting perspective, something that he says things that I would have thought about, and that's something. He says things that I'm always really interested in hearing. His show is something that's very unique, and it's really unlike anything that we have around here. It's something that's just so unique, and it's so interesting, and I always enjoy listening to his show. And it's Cowboy Up with Tex right here, Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. And I'm really happy to work with him here at Hot News Talk Radio. Well, we're talking about using your body as a battery. It is possible, actually. You see, the human body does generate energy. Now, it's not like in the Matrix where the human body can be used as a power source in and of itself. The reason is humans are actually really inefficient. You see, we actually take in more energy than we put out, thus making us very, very inefficient. So then it would be really a bad idea to use us as a power source. Keep that in mind, computers, when you take over. Humans equal bad power. Now, technology has always been intimately linked to the human body. After all, maybe you wear a watch because it looks kind of cool. I used to wear a watch for a long time until it broke and I sort of gave up on it. But the energy in our bodies exists in various forms. Most of them need some form of manipulation before they can be used to power an electronic device, but not all of them do. For instance, the ears of mammals contain a tiny electric voltage called the endocochlear potential found inside the cochlea. It's a spiral-shaped cavity in the inner ear. The EP aids hearing by converting pressure waves into electrical impulses. It's vanishingly weak, about 1/10 of a volt, but it's still strong enough to power hearing aids and other oral implants, meaning that you don't actually need an external power source. Harvesting the EP has long been considered unthinkable due to the extreme sensitivity of the inner ear. But using a combination of surgical prowess and technological innovation, researchers in Massachusetts managed to do just that back in 2012. The team developed an energy harvester chip about the size of a fingernail, which was designed to extract electrical energy directly from the EP. They then tested the chip in a guinea pig, implanting it into the animal's inner ear, where it generated enough electricity to power a radio transmitter. The minute electric power was produced by the chip, about a nanowatt, which is a billionth of a watt, is still about 1 million times too low to power an electrical, or rather electronic implant. But it's a nanowatt more than has been generated before, making this an important proof of concept. If the power output of future prototypes can be boosted, the natural voltage of the inner ear could someday be used to power hearing aids. It could even allow the development of implants to treat diseases which originate there, such as Meniere's disease. Outside the cochlea, however, is free-flowing electricity that's actually kind of rare. Most biological energy is locked up in other forms, and one way to release it is actually by recycling. Think about it this way. Human bodies generate heat. Yeah, you see, any kind of labor generates heat. When I walk down the street, I'm generating a lot of heat. When I'm in an awkward situation, I certainly generate a lot of heat. So heat generation is something that's nothing new to the human body. We've been doing it since we've been around. In fact, all animals do. All animals generate heat in one way or another. Those BTUs can then be converted into electrical energy, right? Yeah. So we convert the BTUs coming off of our bodies into electrical energy, and suddenly we can now power our devices. We may even be able to charge our phones just by jogging. Well, we are built to move, says Ars Technica. Other than powering basic functions in our cells, the bulk of our energy expenditure goes towards muscle motion, heartbeats, breathing, getting places. And to anyone who's used a bicycle generator or wind-up torch, the idea of converting this kinetic energy into electricity is actually not anything new. In the past few years, researchers have started to exploit a unique property of some materials known as piezoelectricity to generate electricity from human movement. Piezoelectric materials spontaneously generate electrical charges when exposed to stress. The Greek word piezo means to squeeze or to press. You may have heard of a piezo mic or a piezo microphone. Now, what these do is you can, or sometimes they're called contact mics. What you do is you attach them to an object, and whenever you tap on that object, it then, or put any sort of vibration to that object, it vibrates the piezo microphone, which then generates electricity, which is then converted into electrical signal, which is then picked up by your device. So then you have a contact microphone. Well, what about, say, contact power? One of the most advanced events of these piezoelectrics was developed back in 2013 by a Chinese-U.S. research team that invented an elastomer-based piezoelectric fabric that was able to generate electricity using only the kinetic energy of human locomotion, meaning walking or movement or whatever. When a piece of this fabric was worn as a shoe insole by a volunteer, walking generated enough electricity to illuminate 30 LEDs. That's not a huge amount of power, but that is something. What's more, when the same fabric was applied to a shirt that was artificially moved, it charged a lithium-ion battery in just a matter of hours. So then that means technically we could charge our phones just by walking in the mall. We could charge our phones just with everyday activity just by moving around. We could charge our phones technically sitting at the computer doing nothing. So the potential of piezoelectric materials goes even deeper. They're also being used to harvest energy from internal organs. Last year, US-based researchers successfully generated energy from the beating hearts, lungs, and diaphragms of sedated cows and sheep, all by attaching an ultra-thin piezoelectric material to those organs. Impressively, the implanted fabric generated about a microwatt of power, roughly the amount needed to run a cardiac pacemaker, meaning that a pacemaker could technically be powered by your body. It could technically be powered by, well, really sugar and calories, essentially. So it could be powered by essentially calories. So then we would be talking about calories per watt. And that would be a really interesting discussion to have. Think about the future of electronics, where we're powering all of our devices by actually doing nothing. We're essentially generating almost free power just by walking down the street. Piezoelectrics may actually be the future of energy. So you might say that we're focusing quite a lot on energy. Positive energy in terms of thoughts, in terms of actions, and positive energy in terms of powering our devices, which is actually both positive and negative because, electricity. So we're generating electricity with clothing now. Now, remember, that was developed back in 2013, and it was done as sort of a research project, and I'm sure it was really expensive, and it was done in China. Of course, China is known for its textiles industry, so maybe we'll be seeing piezoelectric shirts coming along the lines maybe in 2020, and we'll never have to worry about charging our phones ever again. By the way, my phone actually really was at 60% when I woke up this morning. I had to charge it here at work. I don't know why. Kind of annoying, actually. But for some reason, my phone was stuck at 60% charging, and I'm a little bit worried as to why that might be. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com or download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report, the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. And, we have a lot of great programming here on Hot News Talk Radio as well. We have Nuganomics.com and David Toulis. He talks about local economy and free markets here on Hot News Talk Radio. We also have Cowboy Up with Tex. He talks about the day's events from his own very Western, sort of a Southwestern perspective right here on Hot News Talk Radio. That's AM 1240. And hotnewstalkradio.com. Again, if you get the TuneIn app, you can listen to us on your smartphone. There are a lot of great programs there. There's a TuneIn app for your smartphone here at hotnewstalkradio.com and Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240 on your radio dial.
This is a mob mode. This is a mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway near Holcombs. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. A new diplomatic era begins. The Cuban flag raised at the country's embassy in Washington for the first time since 1961.
Hundreds of media, along with a few demonstrators, some demanding Cuba release political prisoners, others simply thankful the two countries are again talking.
Fox Radio's Jared Halpern at the Cuban embassy. Dylan Roof, charged with killing 9 black members of a Charleston, South Carolina church last month, has been ordered to provide handwriting samples. Investigators collected notes they believe were written by Roof. A heat wave leaving much of the Plains states east and southeast high and dry.
Heat index values of 100 to 110 degrees will be widespread this afternoon. Some relief will be arriving to these regions by midweek.
Fox meteorologist Maria Molina. Meanwhile, flash flood warnings remain for much of Southern California after record-breaking rainfall in many areas. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
It's about 12:31 here at Hot News Talk Radio. You know, it's a really nice day. I'm pleasantly surprised at how nice a day it's turned out to be today. It seemed like today was just going to be a drag because it's Monday, right? It's Monday, and we just had awful things happen over the weekend, and you didn't really expect anything positive to come out of today. But really, I gotta say, I'm seeing a lot of positivity today, and I'm kind of happy about it. And I don't mean that in a hippie sort of, ooh, let's all be positive and let's all join hands around trees and talk about how great stuff is. No, that's not what I mean when I'm talking about positivity. I'm talking about living our lives the way that we always live our lives and not letting tragic events keep us from doing that. Because really, that's not what anyone would want. We're not supposed to be these guys who are afraid of our own shadows, who can't seem to get around to really doing much of anything because we're in a depressed sort of state about we're not going to go to the store today, we're not going to go see friends today because we just don't really feel like it. And I'm starting to realize now, because I was there too. You know, honestly, over the weekend, I didn't want to do anything. I felt terrible. I felt awful about everything that happened on Thursday, and I was like, I don't want to do anything, man. I just want to stay home. I just want to read articles on the internet, and I just want to do that. And that was my life for all of the weekend. And I'm starting to get now that really I shouldn't let these things hold me back. Look at what's happening right now over on Lee Highway and over on Amnicola Highway. Look at all these people who are spreading joy and they're spreading love with each other, and they're not being negative. They're being very positive, and they're saying, look, you know, we're moving past this. We are not defined by a terrorist attack. That's not what defines us. What defines us is our ability to overcome that. We are actually able to overcome that because we're that good. We're that cool here that we can actually move past these terrible events and continue on with our day-to-day lives and not let these things shake us so much that we're going to focus on them all year. That's not us. That's not what we do. And so it's really great to see a lot of people out there, you know, spreading positivity and just being not negative, I guess. Drones have apparently forced firefighters to ground their aircraft while fighting a California wildfire, according to The Verge. So you may have seen photos by now, a massive wildfire that caused an apocalyptic scene, although apocalyptic is kind of the wrong word to use. Apocalyptic comes from the Greek meaning uncovering or sometimes revelation, so apocalyptic is really the wrong word to use. But apocalyptic scene on Interstate 15 at the Cajun Pass in California yesterday, perhaps it's Cajon. Dry conditions sparked the blaze at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, and it grew quickly before crossing the freeway later that afternoon and destroying over 20 vehicles. That's expensive. Turns out the firefighters might have been able to better contain the flames were it not for recreational drones. Crews spotted 5 drones in the area of the fire, and the firefighters were forced to ground their aircraft until the drones stopped operating in their airspace. Now, drones can wreak havoc since firefighting aircraft fly so low when they perform water drops. As a U.S. Forest Service spokesperson told the ABC, as soon as we see drones, we shut down all of our aircraft for the safety reasons. If a drone got sucked into a wing or a propeller, that could cause some serious impacts. And of course, a plane crashing is not only going to potentially kill the people on board, it could also kill people down below. So it's too great of a risk. Officials say the ground crews had to find the drone operators and tell them to stop flying around the fire before aircraft were able to continue attempts to control the blaze. In all, the incident delayed efforts by roughly 26 minutes, which is actually really valuable time as wildfires can quickly grow out of control. According to Battalion Chief Mark Peebles of the San Bernardino Fire Department, the delay definitely contributed to the fire hopping the freeway. He told the Los Angeles NBC affiliate that some of the drones gave chase to firefighting aircraft. So I say all this to say, Certainly, there are great uses of drones. I've personally witnessed really great uses of drones. Eric Judd, who works here at Hot News Talk Radio as our business analyst, he can tell you all about how great drones are. He has actually a drone company, and you should definitely check that out. By the way, and so it's we know that there are really great uses for drones. However, responsible flight is certainly an imperative. Now, these guys probably were not licensed to fly commercially. They're probably flying privately, and that's fine. You can do that. But when it comes to responsibility, we have to understand that we can't just fly into airplanes and expect nothing to happen. It doesn't work that way. So let the firefighters do their jobs, because you know what? Lives are in danger here. There are not very many governmental agencies that I am in favor of. In fact, they're few and far between. But one which I will almost always defend is actually the fire department. Believe it or not, I'm quite a fan of the fire department, because really, who can argue with their job? I mean, they fight fires and they save people, and they're really just good, honest guys when it comes right down to it. So who can argue with that, really? So I'm quite a fan of firefighters. Actually, I'm not going to criticize firefighters too much, if at all, here on Digital Drive. So this is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world of sides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240. You guessed it, Hot News Talk Radio. Now, drones can be used for a lot of really great purposes. Unfortunately, flying them into people is not a very good purpose. Perhaps drones should be tackled a little bit. People seem to be kind of afraid of drones in a lot of different ways. Now, there are drones that fly up really far up in the air and fire missiles at people and kill them, and that's really not good. That's not a very good usage of drones. I do not condone that, and I don't support that. However, drones that are much smaller generally don't carry weapons, except for that one that we saw the video of where it was firing a handgun. That was cool. Drones generally don't carry weapons, though, and they usually have cameras on them, and they can be used for really cool things like taking photos, aerial photography. If you get a license from the FAA to operate commercially and you get permission, then you can use your smartphone, or rather, your smartphone actually sometimes, to pilot one of these aircraft, and you can take some really great photos with it, and you can sell them and make a lot of money. So like Sky Aerial Services, by the way, run by Eric Judd here from Hot News Talk Radio. Sky Aerial Services is a really great service if you're looking to use drone photography to capture some of your events. Perhaps you're wanting to get footage for your business. Maybe you want to get footage of your car lot. You're doing real estate. He's very experienced with that. Then he can help you out. That's Eric Judd at Sky Aerial Services here in Chattanooga. That's Sky Aerial Services. Aerial spelled A-E-R-I-A-L. Aerial Services. Sky Aerial Services. Definitely check him out. He's got a drone service here in Chattanooga, and he flies his drone in order to take really great photos. And don't worry, it actually is legal. A lot of people seem to be confused, thinking that it's actually illegal to fly drones. It's really not. In fact, if you're flying it for a private reason, you can pretty much fly it anywhere you want. For a commercial purpose, you have to get permission, of course, and with a commercial purpose, you have to get a license from the FAA and all that sort of thing. But really, there's not a whole lot that's illegal about drones. Now, people are going to say, oh, man, the other day I saw a drone, and it was flying on the street, and it had its camera pointed at me. Well, there's a pretty high chance that the camera wasn't actually on, because it takes up a lot of memory to film stuff. It's not even filming. It's actually capturing a digital image file, but whatever. It takes up a lot of memory to do that. And even so, the footage of you probably isn't going to be used. Also, if you're walking on the street, you have no reasonable expectation of privacy, and thus can be filmed in these United States. It's interesting, isn't it? But yeah, drones are not something that are to be afraid of. A lot of people think that they are. I don't really understand that. TV is going the way of the dinosaur, and that is good. I hate TV. I'm sick of TV. It's a waste of time. I don't like it. TV is one of those things where it's a schedule thing, is what it is. It's a schedule thing, which sounds weird because radio is really regimented and very scheduled, right? Well, kind of, yeah. You see, radio is interesting because it's very passive. You can tune into radio. In fact, you can use the TuneIn Radio app to tune into radio. And that's it. That's really all that's necessary. You just tune in and there you go. You can do whatever you want now. You tune into the radio, you listen to my show, you listen to David Twills' show here on Nuganomics.com, you listen to Tex's show with Cowboy with Tex, you listen to Sean Hannity, you listen to Hot News Live at 5, you listen to Ground Zero, you listen to Coast, any one of those shows. You can listen to those, and you don't really have to sit down and listen attentively, although I'm sure somebody does. In fact, I know somebody who does. You don't have to necessarily sit down and listen attentively. You can do other things, and that's cool, because radio is a passive thing. Don't feel bad if you can only listen to half of a show or a quarter of a show or 15 minutes of a show or 5 or 1 minute. That's okay, because that's what we're here for. We're here for you. We're at your service and we're at your leisure, and you can do whatever you want when you're listening to the show, and that's fine. Number to call in, by the way, 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949 if you want to call in. That's not a toll-free number, by the way. We just happen to get the 800 prefix. Don't know how we managed that. 423-800-8949. Actually, exchange. 423-800-8949 is the number to call in if you want to call in. And yes, anyone can call in if you want to. A federal judge has given Film On the copyright win that Arrow could not get, which is a major blow to terrestrial TV, which, again, I'm not a fan of. Because TV, you're locked into a schedule. I don't want to be locked into a schedule, man. I like BoJack Horseman on Netflix, right? And that's not an endorsement. I'm not being paid by them to say that. I just like it. It's fun. It's a good show. I like watching the X-Files, right? It's fun. It's a cool show. I like watching Star Trek. I like watching all these different things. I don't want to be locked into a schedule, though. Like when I see a movie is on TV and it's already like 15 minutes or over, it's like, man, forget it, man. I'm not going to watch a movie if I've missed the first 15 minutes of it. Like, can you imagine Blade Runner's on TV and you lost the first 15 minutes of it? That's a great first 15 minutes. You got the scene where he's at the bar. You got, the noodle bar. You got the scene with Holden and he's in the interrogation room with the Voight Kampf. You got the whole scene with him talking to Deckard, the police chief talking to Deckard, reactivating him. You got the scene with the spinner flying to Tyrell Corporation. You have all these cool things in the first 15 minutes, and guess what? You missed all of that because you're locked onto a stupid schedule. No thanks. I prefer to watch my movies online. A federal judge has ruled that video streaming service Film On should be treated like a cable company and is entitled to the same compulsory copyright license that cable systems get. So it's a huge and unexpected win, coming not long after Arrow failed when it tried to make the same argument in court, according to Ars Technica. If upheld, the decision would open a route to legal TV owner, or rather TV over internet businesses. That's hard. Not just for Film On, but for future competitors as well. In his 15-page order, U.S. District Judge George Wu acknowledged that his preliminary decision is in direct conflict with the Second Circuit, and he said he'll allow an immediate appeal to the Ninth Circuit. The TV broadcasters who sued Film On for copyright infringement, which include all 4 major TV networks, will surely pursue that option. Arrow had tried to argue that it was essentially an antenna rental service. It had arrays of dime-sized antennas set up in New York where it collected TV broadcasts and then sent them out over the internet, bundling them all together with DVR-like features for as little as $8 a month at the time. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit said that Arrow was in the clear, but the Supreme Court disagreed, holding a 6-3 opinion that the company looked too much like a cable system to avoid paying copyright fees. Oh, well, after that, Arrow went back to court asking to pay the compulsory license rate that cable companies pay to rebroadcast television. But the New York District Court slapped down Arrow, saying that even though the Supreme Court had knocked out its earlier arguments, it still was not entitled to the compulsory copyright license. Oh, well. The TV plaintiffs initially took their case against Film On to the Ninth Circuit to avoid the Cablevision precedent that had initially allowed Arrow several court wins. In filing this case, plaintiffs hoped for a different result under the law of the Ninth Circuit, wrote Wu, and they got one. The East Coast litigation turned around once the TV companies won at the Supreme Court. The High Court found that Arrow looks so much like a cable system that it should be treated as one legally. Arrow lawyers went back to court seeking to get the same new compulsory license that cable companies get, but a New York federal court rejected that option, citing a decision against an earlier TV over internet attempt called EVTV. Or IVI TV, maybe 1v1 TV. Like Arrow, Film On switched its legal theory after the Supreme Court ruling. Happy with the results in New York, the TV companies asked Wu to remove any argument over the compulsory license to that venue, but Wu, sensing that the broadcasters were nakedly venue shopping, would not do it, saying plaintiffs wanted a fresh look at the Second Circuit decision in Cablevision v. Arrow and they will now get a fresh look at the Second Circuit's conclusions, was stated at the 2014 Status Conference. So TV might actually be changing, hopefully for the better. Now, again, I hate schedules. I don't like being locked into schedules. In fact, if you want to listen to the show at any point, or actually any of our live shows that we have here on Hot News Talk Radio, you can. In fact, you can even see us if you want to here on Hot News Talk Radio. If you go to YouTube, then you can go to the Hot News Talk Radio channel on YouTube, and you can see most of our actually all of our recorded shows, including our live coverage from Thursday. If you want to look back at that and get a sort of a timeline of how things were going, then you can definitely check that out. And again, that's Hot News Talk Radio on YouTube, where you can look at us streaming live on YouTube. In fact, we are streaming live right now on YouTube too. If you want to watch, just go to YouTube and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Will be the first result. It's a channel. It's got an eagle as the profile picture. Just click on that, and then you can see any of our shows that are recorded or are streaming live at the moment, like mine, which is streaming live right now. The title of this one is Happy Atomic Anniversary, thanks to the anniversary of the 70th anniversary of the atomic bomb having been blasted. Now, I am a huge defender of your right to do whatever you want with what you've bought. You see, if you've purchased a CD, you now own that copy of the music, right? That's your CD. For all intents and purposes, that is your CD. And the contents therein are yours for you to do whatever you want with for your own personal reasons. That includes copying it so you can put it on your phone, right? You're not sharing it. You're not selling it. You're not making money off of it. You're not profiting. So really, who cares, right? Well, for some reason, copyright holders care a lot. And I know why. And we all know the reason. It's because they're not making money. Right? I mean, if there's an opportunity to make that illegal so that they can then make you pay for a second copy, it's definitely a win for them. Making copies of copyrighted music and videos for personal use is again illegal in the United Kingdom because of a ruling by the High Court that was issued today. Now, keep in mind, that's not the United States, that's the United Kingdom. Fortunately, because the UK is kind of a hellhole and I would never want to go there, but in the UK, unfortunately, they have these totalitarian rulings that make it extremely difficult for us to pretty much do what we want with our own property. Today's ruling quashes the 2014 regulation that made it legal to make personal copies of performances for private use, as long as the person doing so was had lawfully acquired the content and doesn't distribute it to anyone else. Now, again, you're not even sharing that. That's not counting sharing, right? It's different if you're doing what most people refer to as pirating, where you buy a CD at the store, you make 20 copies of it, and you sell it to your friends, or you give it away to your friends. You're not even doing that in this case. You bought the CD, you rip it to your computer, and you put it on your MP3 player, your iPod or your Zune or whatever. That should be fine, right? Because they're not really losing any money other than you're not buying another copy of exactly the same thing. Seems kind of silly. Now, the argument could be made similar to an argument that's made for games, right? I buy a game for Xbox. Let's say I have Assassin's Creed for the Xbox 360, which I do. And then I want to get Assassin's Creed for the PC, which I have. But I can't because I bought the Xbox version. Oh, great. So you have to buy another version. That's sort of the argument that they're making. But the problem is that there's lack of compatibility there. Code is different. Physically, it will not run. Technologically, it will not run on that platform. However, a CD, you can rip it and you can put it on your MP3 player and it will run just fine with no problems whatsoever. So really the argument's kind of moot when it comes right down to it. You're not having to alter really anything other than functionality that's built into your computer and has been built into computers since like 1998. Well, the High Court ruled last month that the regulation hadn't been enacted properly and that the personal use exemption wasn't immediately thrown out because other remedies could have been considered. But today's ruling takes all that off the books. So you no longer have personal exemption for ripping CDs in the UK, making it illegal. Not just a suable offense, making it illegal. Now that is certainly an interesting thing, where they can actually put you in jail for music piracy over in the UK. Now, I'm not aware of anyone who's ever gone to jail here in the States for music piracy, probably because most people do it. That's the thing. It's one of those things. It's kind of like marijuana where there's not really any enforcing it because what are you going to do? I mean, lots of people have it. Lots of people grow it here. It's one of those things where it's like, come on, really? You're going to enforce that? Come on, try it. Just try it. You're not going to be able to. It's sort of the same thing with music piracy, where everyone does it And there's not really any way to effectively track all of it. So, and there's so many different methods of doing it too, some more or less known than others, that it really just doesn't seem worth anyone's time to care about music piracy. That's sort of the problem that is being faced here in the United States, and they seem to have solved it in the UK by just making it outright illegal. Although, again, I'm not aware of anyone who's actually gone to jail for doing this music piracy. I'm not aware of anyone who's gone to jail, although I am aware of people who haven't been sued. The Air Force here in the States is offering a big bonus to stop the mass exodus of drone pilots. This is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. It's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com. Click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. People in the Air Force are seeming to be taking offense or taking issue with or exception perhaps, to drone strikes in foreign countries. In an effort to stem the loss of its overworked and overstressed drone pilots, the U.S. Air Force has introduced a new program to try to convince existing pilots to stay with the service, as well as rapidly bring aboard new ones. You see, they're losing more than they're taking in, so if the trend continues, there will basically be no qualified drone pilots. The plan includes putting a fresh crop of remotely piloted aircraft, or RPA pilots, in drone squadrons as early as August. That's next month, by the way, and offering existing pilots a $15,000 bonus per year starting in 2016. As Ars Technica reported back in June, the Air Force is actually facing a potential mass exodus of drone pilots. The NYT reported that a significant number of the current approximately 12,000 RPA trained pilots who fly the Air Force's MQ-1 Predator and MQ-9 Reaper drones were approaching the end of their current service obligations and had stated their intentions to leave the Air Force. Meanwhile, the training program for new drone pilots has only been producing about half the number needed to meet the Air Force's manning levels, putting more stress on pilots and causing the Air Force to move instructors back to daily flying to fill the gaps. So that's like if your teacher had to become a student at your school in order to fill quota of lack of students. That seems kind of, well, weird. That would never happen, right? We wouldn't ever expect that to happen, but it is here in this particular situation. Now, of course, the CIA has a mass amount of drone pilots, and the CIA conducts lots and lots of drone flights. So that's not counting the Air Force. The Air Force and the CIA are two very different entities, so they're not included in this number. The CIA is not included in this exodus of drone pilots. Probably CIA pilots are actually people in Guantanamo Bay who are being forced to do it anyway, so who knows. But the demand of flying combat missions a world away on a long shift without actually being deployed overseas kind of, it kind of grinds on you. It kind of grinds on you, I should say. In a press release issued by the Air Force this week, Secretary of Air Force Deborah Lee James said, "We now face a situation where if we don't direct additional resources appropriately, it creates unacceptable risk, and we are working hard to put solutions in place to bring needed relief to our airmen and ensure our actions show their value to our mission." Part of the issue has been that the Air Force has drawn its drone pilots from the ranks of pilots who train to fly manned aircraft. The last time the Air Force pulled freshly minted pilots specifically into the drone program was in 2011, and there's been no specialized school to produce pilots for the drone rule. So it seems that drones are not very popular anymore. Plus, there have been lots of campaigns from former service members trying to get people to stop flying these drones because they have a moral obligation, they believe, to cease and desist. So we're seeing an interesting shift where people are becoming disenfranchised with the whole thing. People are not wanting to fly these drones anymore because people are becoming more questioning of the motive. People are saying perhaps this is not actually being done for a good reason or for a good purpose. Could it be? Well, it's an interesting question, and one that you'll have to answer for yourself, because I can't tell you how you should live your life morally. That's something that you have to discover perhaps for yourself. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and quite a bit more. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. Download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Nuganomics.com with David Toulis is coming up in just a few minutes right here. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. He talks about local economy and free markets from his own Nuga-centric position.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.